As soon as Valinda Cortez woke up on that Sunday morning, she had no desire to save anyone. The rain was really heavy and she wanted to get home quickly. Luckily, all she had planned for the day was a quick stop at the store across the street to pick up a few things she needed. She saw something that broke her heart when she left her house, though. A gray dog was sitting in the middle of the road. The dog was dirty and wet, looking like it was in desperate need, but it wouldn't move. Valinda first thought the dog might belong to one of her neighbors, but she didn't recognize it, so it had to be someone else's. People who walk dogs sometimes leave their dogs tied up outside while they run inside to get some food. This could have happened to this poor dog as well. She kept a close eye on the store's front door for a few minutes, but no one came out. She saw that there was no leash on the dog as she got closer. What was even worse was that there were no other people in the convenience shop. It was early in the morning and most people in this neighborhood probably chose to stay in and sleep instead of going outside in this weather. As a matter of fact, Valinda was still wearing her pajamas and flip-flops. She was planning to go back to her warm bed as soon as she arrived. But as soon as she saw the dog, she forgot about her own comfort and any other plans she had for the day because she was worried about the dog. Valinda was careful as she got closer because she didn't know how the dog would respond to her. Some of her friends had dogs that would wag their tails when they saw her, but this dog did not do anything when she got close. Valinda saw that it was a girl dog at this point. She looked so down and out that it was like she had given up on everything. Valinda knew right away that the dog was in bad shape when she saw her up close. Her fur was dirty and matted in some places, and one of her front legs was short. There were reddish spots on her hair that made me think she had been hurt recently and no one had cleaned her wounds. The dog's eyes were also not right. Both of them were leaking a lot of watery discharge, making them look dull and bored. That likely worried her just as much as the constant rain. Who in their right mind would have left the poor animal here? Valinda quickly turned around and ran back to her car after giving the dog one last look. In the trunk, she found an old blanket that had probably been left there after a picnic or barbecue. She couldn't even remember which one it was, but she grabbed it, ran back across the parking lot, and slowed down to walk as she got closer to the badly dressed dog. Valinda didn't want to scare the dog by coming at it too quickly or out of the blue, but she didn't need to worry. Even though the dog was still sitting in the same place, it looked just as blank and sad as before. Valinda carefully spread out the red blanket and put it over the dog's back. She jumped a little when it touched her, but she stayed where she was. She was such a sad and poor thing. Valinda tried to picture what it must have been like to keep sitting there in the cold rain for hours on end with no way out. Valinda talked to the dog in what she thought was a low, reassuring voice. She told the dog that she would stay with her until help arrived. The dog didn't bark or run away. Did that mean something good? The fact that she wasn't turning her down. Valinda hoped so, but it was probably just another sign of how down she was. Valinda kept her word and stayed with the dog. People would walk by every once in a while, and she felt awkward standing next to the dog in her flip-flops and pajamas. Some of the people who saw her probably thought she was having a midlife crisis or something else, but she hoped that at least some of them would see the dog and get what was going on. Valinda realized that she needed a lot more than just company as she stood there in the rain with the dog. She was trying to think of something else she could do to help the dog when she remembered that a good friend, Sue Macy, worked at one of the city's animal shelters. She quickly sent Sue a text message on her phone, telling her everything about the dog's health and behavior. She asked for advice or help in a desperate way at the end of the message. A few minutes went by while Valinda waited for a reply. It was raining hard and she didn't have anywhere to dry off. The dog didn't seem to have anyone. Even though it hurt, she stayed with the dog and kept talking to it in soft tones, telling it that she would stay there until help came. Valinda hoped that the dog knew at least some of what she was saying, even though she didn't show it. As she waited, she began to think of questions and possible solutions. The dog was clearly lost, but she had been that way before. Her calm behavior showed that she knew how to interact with people, which meant she had a family, or at least an owner, in the past. However, she had no idea how the poor wet dog got split from the house she used to know. She might not have had anyone offer to care for her since her owner had died. She might have been dragged to a place with no one else around and left there. In the same way, it was hard to tell how many days or even weeks had passed since the dog had been left behind. The dog would have told her a sad story if she could talk. It all began when she was left alone in a neighborhood she didn't know. She stayed put for a long time, hoping that her person would come back with food and treats for her. As the days turned into weeks and no one came back, she slowly died inside from feeling deceived. She ceased to have hope that this individual would return because her big dog heart cherished them so much. She got hurt on the way, but no one cared. She then grabbed some chicken bones or pizza slices from a trash can and kept going. So one day, she found herself back at a place she knew and remembered from the good old days. It was where she used to wait for her person and get treats, like jerky for being patient. She chose to wait even though it was raining because she was thinking about that happy time in the past. Were she to wait long enough, her human might come back and take her home as a prize for being so loyal. She didn't think it would take her owner so long to find her, though. It's possible that she did something wrong and her owner no longer loved her. She didn't know what to do when the strange woman put a blanket over her. Because she had lost her owner, she knew that some people were not nice and could not be trusted. Some of them threw stones at her, hit her, or chased her. They sometimes did strange things. Should you trust the strange woman? She had no idea. Some of the words the woman used when she talked to her, she knew, "Good doggy." Those words made me happy. When her master said those words, it meant treats or a trip to the park, but how did that strange woman know? With her great hearing, she could also hear the beep beep in the woman's pocket. That's the same kind of thing her owner had. That could have been a good sign. "Hey honey," the woman said as she looked at her phone. "There will be help for you soon." After 20 minutes, Sue Macy and someone from the animal rescue showed up in a van with a leash for the dog. The dog was quickly out of the rain and on our way to a fresh start. Sue and her coworker checked the dog in when they got to the Asheville Humane Society shelter. An animal doctor was ready to take care of her. First, a scanner was used to check the dog's chip to see if it had one. They would never be able to find her former owner because she didn't do that. After that, her whole health was checked out. The vet paid extra attention to the discharge around her eyes and the leg that wasn't there, which made her nervous. The stump wasn't fully healed, and there was a yellowish discharge around the cut that made her worry about the animal's health. She weighed the dog and then gave her a medicine shot to help fight the infection. Sue thought the dog might be too sick to be saved after being out in the cold on the street, but the vet reassured everyone that the dog's illness and injuries could be fixed. The dog needed a bath after a checkup. Luckily, the water at the shelter's laundry room was nice and warm. To get all the dirt off of her clothes, a certain shampoo was used. That person cut out the worst knots and kinks in her coat once she was dry and warm again. The dog stayed stoically quiet during all of these steps. At the sight of a bowl of water, she eagerly drank it all up and ate all of the food that was put in front of her. A worker at the shelter took the dog to a big box with more food, water, and a blanket after all this attention. The dog laid down on the blanket when the gate shut behind her. She had a place to live. She was out of the rain and cold and away from people who might try to hurt her. After the doctor put ointment on the wound, her stump was bandaged up. It still hurt a little, but it felt a little better. The dog laid her head down and fell asleep. As a homeless person, it was hard for her to sleep, but now that she was in a safe place, she could finally unwind and fall asleep. After some days, Valinda Cortez asked Sue Macy, a friend, how the dog was doing. Sue asked her to visit the rescue so she could see for herself. When Valinda arrived there, she was astounded by what she saw. With good care and a bath, the dog, whose name was now Cassie, looked beautiful. Cassie stayed at the Asheville Animal Shelter for a few days while she healed from her wounds and eye infection. She started taking part in some of the fun things the shelter does as soon as she was healthy enough. These included playdates with other shelter dogs, hikes with volunteers, and one-on-one behavior therapy lessons. She didn't hurt anyone and everyone was nice to her. While she still missed her owner, she learned that she could love and trust other people too. Just maybe, these ones wouldn't leave her either. Casey looked stunning in the picture of her adoption. She was quickly located by a kind family who took her in because she was polite and well-behaved. She wouldn't waste any time because she had a new life to look forward to.